Members, good morning. I'm sorry I had to go to the other room for another meeting, which is happening at the same time. This is the panel on home affairs. And let's move on to item 1 of the agenda. Information papers issued since the last meeting. We have a letter from Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, CB bracket 2363/1819 bracket 01. Will members please note this paper? Anything to add, Mr. Ma? Any comment from other members? Mr. Ma? Nothing to add, Chairman, but in terms of street performance, it brings vibrancy and freedom to societies. Now that we have scrapped the system, I think it is time we think about encouraging street performances, and I think the government should take another step. Well, Mr. Ma, street performance has been put on our list of outstanding items for discussion. Any objection? Next item. Items for discussion at the next meeting. Please refer the list of outstanding items for discussion and list of follow-up actions. The next meeting is scheduled for the 28th of January 2019 at 8:30 in the morning. The administration has proposed to discuss 2 items. First, Community Care Fund. Second, remuneration of a review of the remuneration and allowances for district councillors. Any views on that? These are the 2 items for discussion at the next meeting. All right, if there is no objection, we'll follow the administration's suggestion. Third item. Virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality research laboratory in the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts. So let's invite the administration to come in. We have paper CB bracket 2448/1819 bracket 03.
咁喺度咧就請各位委員留意啦，呢項議
May I remind members that this is a funding proposal. In accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to this item, before you speak, please disclose the nature of the interest. So let me invite Mr. Jack Chan, Undersecretary for Home Affairs, to walk members through the administration's paper. All right, Chairman, members, good morning. Today, let me walk members through this paper on virtual reality, augmented reality, or mixed reality research laboratory in the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts. That's VR, AR, and MR for the Hong Kong APA. Hong Kong APA is the higher education institution in Hong Kong dedicated to professional training of performing arts practitioners. They need to keep abreast of the world trend and maintain its capability to nurture graduates equipped with this skill. Now, for VR, AR, MR, they are fast emerging technologies in the digital media field, and they are gradually being world standard in its application in the stage performances. So the Hong Kong APA believes that it is necessary to set up such a laboratory in its campus with the necessary equipment, together with the new courses in digital media and specialization courses. This laboratory will also help inspire new works and also collaboration across different disciplines, so that research can also be, or practice-based research can also be made. The non-current expenditures is $16 million. I will now invite the Hong Kong APA's team to walk members through the VR, AR, MR laboratory. how it is applied at the moment and the academic development in this regard. And their team and myself will be happy to take questions from members afterwards. Thank you. Under Secretary. We have Mr. Yu Si-wing, Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, who have raised their hands to indicate they wish to speak. Any more members? Oh, yes, there are. I'm sorry. Anything to supplement from the administration?
So just a general introduction to the Academy for Performing Arts. We're the only higher education institution in Hong Kong offering specialised training in the performing arts. It's quite unique worldwide in that respect. And the fact we're interdisciplinary is one of our great strengths. We encourage students to gain skills across a variety of disciplines. We take a lot of advantage of our unique location in Hong Kong, and more recently building very strong connections within the Greater Bay Area. We were a founder signatory to a Greater Bay Area Cultural Alliance about a year ago, which has been very active in the meantime. We're very committed to the use of new technologies in our performing arts programs, exploring how they can bring new learning opportunities to students. So innovation is a very important part of what we do, particularly in terms of practices research, which leads into R&D work and enhanced performance outcomes. We have strong collaborations with industry. We have lots of industry advisory groups, and we work very, very closely with industry to make sure developments we're doing keep in line with expectations and needs of industry. So we work very collaboratively with those members. We also work very closely with other major performing arts groups in Hong Kong. We have very strong relationships with most of the major performing arts groups, and recently we signed an MOU with West Kowloon Cultural District. We've had long-term relationships of West Kowloon, and that really already has been resulting in some very important new projects. Long term, the Academy would like to position itself very much as a leader and part of an innovation hub in cutting-edge performing arts education in Hong Kong. With that introduction, I'll now pass over to my colleagues, Gigi and Hwa, to talk a little bit more about the project and about the School of Theatre and Entertainment Arts. Thank you, Chairman.
To introduce the school. The School of TEA offers 12 specializations in 3 departments, as shown on the slide, of which the production, design, and interactive media area is under the Department of Media Design and Technology. The school is the only program in Southeast Asia and mainland that provides training in the full range of backstage practice necessary to succeed in today's multifaceted entertainment industry. It plays a major role in all Academy productions, regularly collaborates with other programs within the APA in more than 14 stage productions and numerous other projects annually. The schools we collaborate with are School of Dance, School of Drama, School of Chinese Opera, School of Film and TV, and School of Music. The school boasts 99% employment in the relevant theatre entertainment industry on graduation, and this is a survey that's conducted in the past 3 years. The following are some of the major employers of our graduates. The school offers fully validated programs, and the VR, AR, MR lab and associated courses will directly benefit our undergraduate program.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. On behalf of the Hong Kong APA, the School of Theatre and Entertainment Arts, let me walk members through the research and practices with the illustration of a number of examples to show members how we apply this in live performances.
The first example is from a VR theater in Germany. The designer uses high-definition 3D laser scanning to create a stage backdrop. So audience can look at the performance from different perspectives. This is a brand new experience for the audience. Another example is a story about a veteran, and this is a true story. It's about using VR to cure post-traumatic syndrome of veterans. So this is also another way of using VR. As for this video, it shows you how we use head tracking or tracking technologies. In the past, effects like this were not realizable, but now the audience can have a brand new experience. As for the motion capture technology and facial expression capture technologies, this will also be used. So avatars can be put on the stage at the same time. Now you can see the facial expression of the actress, and it can be shown immediately in the VR. As for the color of the costume, it can be changed anytime. So these create different opportunities for future performances. As for audience experience, it will be enhanced with the development of MR. MR is a combination of a VR and AR. So through these devices, the audience can go in and out of VR and AR anytime. So when it comes to art creation, this means a new possibility. Other than VR technology, in the laboratory, we also have projectors, and also students can learn about coding. So while the video changes, different possibilities are created. Here, while the singer sings, the visual effect changes. So it's not fixed in advance. Now projection technology has progressed a lot. So there are different ways of different new technologies. This is 3D mapping. And we can make use of this technology to introduce new aesthetics in scenic and lighting design. For example, we can have natural light in a room, and we can create a curtain and windows, etc. So these are all new effects on the stage. We have come up with new programs, and this is divided into 3 phases. As for the first phase is for this academic year, now we are using our existing resources to teach students. And for phase 2, when we have new resources, there will be advanced courses. As for phase 3, we hope that with the support of the research laboratory, we can teach students more, and students can explore new ways to express themselves on stages. And also we can have more cooperation with other art groups. And I would like to share this with you. This is from the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. They are using new technologies that I mentioned just now, and this is a very good example. Well, this production was in 2016. It was using the highest technology at that time, and motion as well as facial expression capture technologies were used, and they were projected onto an avatar on the stage. So APA will be using these as our role models. We think that the technology is very mature now, and the price is not that high. So it's the right time for us to use new technologies. So we have taken reference from these outstanding examples. We think this is the opportune time to create a research laboratory and offer our programs. If we delay, our students would lag behind the market, and the APA cannot make use of INT to continue to be the leader of performing arts. So we have looked at the international performing arts developments, and this is the right way for us to go forward. Thank you. Under Secretary, now you have all made your reports. Okay. We have 4 members who have raised their hands. Hon MA Fung-kwok, Aung Nok Hin, and Chia Wei-chun, Charles Mok, Yip Kin Yuen, Tanya Chan. I'm sorry, we have 3 agenda items to discuss today, so we will have to pay attention to the time. This item will last until 9 or 10, that is 10 minutes past 9. So each member will have 3 minutes. That includes questions and answers. Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. Well, for the funding application, I support it. Well, because I think Hong Kong should develop with the times when it comes to technologies like this. So for these facilities, in the future, you will be conducting a tendering exercise. So for the original facilities, would you make changes to them, and would cost increase or decrease as a result of this? And also technology advances very fast. So this is a relatively new technology. In 2019, when you tender, there may be newer technologies. So what will you do? Those newer technologies may be even better and cheaper. So what would you do if technology changes? Otherwise, your costs may change all the time, and then the tendering arrangements may also be different. Thank you. I'll answer first, and I'll ask the director to supplement. Now, we have already identified a site. We have a space of about 120 square meters. It is a studio, and it can be used for the laboratory in the future. We will renovate it, we will add facilities, and then that can be done. As for technologies, well, they are looking at the latest technologies, and Mr. Yu is right. For these technologies, they advance all the time, so we hope that we can keep abreast of the times. We are confident that in the course of tendering, we can obtain the latest technology. Ask the director to supplement.
We have a very clear plan for dealing with advancing technology and how we're going to keep our facilities up to date, because that's a critical part of the delivery of the programs, whereas the hardware has got a longer shelf life than often the software. But maybe I can ask one of our school representatives to give you a little bit more detail about that.
When it comes to our budget, we have reserved 7% to cope with the increase in cost and inflation. As for technologies, in particular, computer technology, the specifications and costs change every year. So when it comes to our design, we hope that the specifications can at least last for 3 to 5 years. As for visual effects, in terms of technologies, we can use some methods so that in the future, when we change to newer versions, the cost can still be kept low. Mr. Ma Fung-kwok? Well, I utterly support this application. We really need this. So for this technology is very important for performing arts practitioners. So all directors, theater actors, and technicians, they should know about these advanced technology is very important for stage performances. So I totally support it. Just now we've heard that the technologies would have to be renewed every 5 years. That is quite a reasonable arrangement. So each year now you can use these technologies for 1,500 hours. That is acceptable. So with these new technologies, well, can they make more contributions to Hong Kong's performing arts industries? So when these laboratories are free, can you support the industry to carry out researches or provide trainings so that the industry practitioners would also know the latest technologies? And why don't you apply for more funds? Now, for the amphitheater and the lyric theater of APA, maybe you can also equip them with similar technologies so that the technologies can be used for real performances. That will definitely escalate Hong Kong's performing art level to another higher level. And I have a third question, which is for the government. Now, for many of our performing art venues, for example, in East Kowloon and even West Kowloon, there are new venues. So do you have plans to use this kind of technologies? I think it's already very commonly used in other countries and the mainland. Earlier on, I've been criticizing the government for using backward technology. So have you considered using them at new venues? I'll try to answer the question concerning new venues first. Yes, I totally agree with you. For our venues or for our new venues, we definitely would look at the latest technologies and equipments. As for the old venues, when we renovate them, we hope that their facilities and equipments can be upgraded. Mr. Ma talked about NTEs. I'm happy that the LegCo has just approved a fund for building our new venue. So we hope that we will adopt the latest technologies there. As for the 1,500 hours, we have made some calculation. For APA each year, well, the academic year is from September to May, about 9 months. So if you divide you divide that by 9 months, each month is 189 hours, and for the work days, it's almost 8 hours a day. So for APA, it's very special. They use their facilities even at night. But is there room for other users? Well, we can look into that. Well, the APA is always liaising with the industry. It hopes that it can give support to the industry. So if there is room for doing that, we will definitely encourage more cooperations with the industry and other art groups. I think that would be good. I have several questions. Well, the Undersecretary has answered one of your questions, and Mr. Ma also asked other questions. For the new technologies, can they be used in other theaters of the APA so that more students can use them, and can that also be used in community facilities? How about LCSD? Well, maybe the director can answer the questions concerning providing more technologies on campus.
The major objectives of the Academy is to roll out that technology to other venues indeed, starting off with this facility, and then that'll roll out into other venues very, very quickly. And I'm sure we will be back with other funding applications for equipping those ones into the future. We also have very strong partnerships with universities like Baptist University, Lingnan University, and MOU with West Kowloon, and we really want to share and collaborate and work together using these resources for developing new practice within the industry. So that's going to be very, very important part of what we do. The Academy has a track record for that. For example, our fast track program in our School of Theatre and Entertainment Arts was developed with the industry for the industry, and this is something we're very committed to. So making facilities open to external users and working with them in partnership is very important to us. Maybe I could ask my colleagues to talk a little bit more about the technical facilities.
Hi. How?
Yes? Yes, understood.
Okay.
Well, it's been 5 minutes, so perhaps you can supplement your answer when another member asks the same question. Mr. Ao Lok Hin. Just now, Undersecretary mentioned that 1,500 hours should be should be sufficient. But let's not forget, in 2016, there was a media report about the utilization of some venues of the Hong Kong APA, and it was not very satisfactory. So, can you give us a succinct answer under the existing mechanism, whether there are venues that can be rented out for other organizations outside the campus? Of course, you can give priority to your students, but if you have available venues, other organizations should be able to hire or rent it. That's the first question. Second question, in 2012, $444.8 billion, and then we have the new complex with 5 dedicated laboratories. In other words, if you have an available venue, you should set up some protocol to prevent being criticized for the low utilization of venues. Now, I'd like to ask for a written reply regarding paragraph 14 of your paper. Now, for wearables, the serviceable life is 5 years. For recurring expenditure, that this item costs $650,000. Now, I wonder if this is sufficient, because for the AV system is $6.1 million per set. So altogether, the total could be a lot. Can you explain to us in writing after the meeting how you come by the figures? And how do you deal with the equipment that will be phased out? Thank you, Chairman. About the question on venues, we understand that for the new wing or the new complex, it was commissioned last month. In the beginning of next year, I would say that the new complex will be fully commissioned so as to provide more space for Hong Kong APA for education and research. As to whether there is there is room for other organizations to hire the venues. Of course, we encourage collaboration across disciplines. The point is whether in practical situations this is available. As for the $650,000, I understand this is the recurrent expenditure for maintenance and repair, and this will be borne by the Hong Kong APA. Chairman, they haven't answered me whether there is a mechanism. Yes, of course, there is a mechanism to encourage collaboration across disciplines, and it is also set out in the paper, but not about hiring venues, right? Perhaps I'll defer to APA to respond to these specifics.
Have a formal hiring mechanism, which is also promoted online, where outside hirers can use our venues. We took note of the Audit Commission's report, and we've worked hard at improving accessibility, and currently our venue usage is 91% in the Wan Chai campus, and only about 50% in the Bethany campus, which is more of a challenge for us because a lot of people don't want to go that far, although that's not including the chapel, which is almost 100% utilised. So we've raised the Wan Chai usage to 91%. That, of course, doesn't include the OCE. So we do have a very a good mechanism for managing any vacant space. We've also introduced an online booking system for students. So if there is vacant space anytime in the academy, the student can find out online very quickly and make sure that space is utilised.
Thank you.
係謝偉銓議員。
Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Chairman. I think we should all support this proposal, because with the use of innovation technology, we can increase efficiency. Yesterday, I went to the University of Hong Kong because the construction industry invited me to attend a talk on virtual reality or augmented reality, and it is interactive, it is effective. So I share the views of other members. I'm going to support this paper. Now, some other members mentioned the advancement of technology. And I would like to refer to paragraph 14. The normal serviceable life is 5 years for wearables and computers, and that is, in my view, fair, and also 8 to 10 years for other equipment such as loudspeakers, lighting, etc. Now let me clarify. Is it that you have not planned for any enhancement, improvement of these facilities in the midterm? Because 8 to 10 years sounds quite a long time. Second point, I see that there are two parts to the tendering process, 2 batches. I'd like to know why you need to break it down to 2 batches, and do you have any sum of money in mind? Well, thank you for the midterm improvement or enhancement. That's a very good suggestion. After it is commissioned, we will review the situation regularly, and if need be, we won't rule out enhancing the facilities in the midterm. Well, this $16 million, however, doesn't include the provision for that, but as explained, there is a 7% contingency sum to cope with price changes or minor adjustments. So we have a 7% contingency. As for the tendering by 2 batches, I'll invite the APA to respond to that.
Thank you. We're very cognizant of the fact that we need to keep our technology and our teaching programs up to industry standard. That's very important for us, and it's something we have a deal of experience in, particularly in theatre, entertainment, arts, in film and television, where technology is at the base of what they do. I'll now hand over to my colleagues from the school to maybe address the budgetary issue and any other comments about the lifespan of the equipment.
The provision, we expect to tender in 2 batches, keeping in mind that the technology is advancing very rapidly. To better tie in with the course development, for the related equipment, we'll only invite tender when time is right. So that's in 2020, 2021. What about the sums for these 2 batches, the sums of money? Mr. Yun? For the second batch, they're mostly related to lighting, audio system, rendering engines for the stage. We understand that in the coming years there might be major technological changes, so they will be deferred to 2020, 2021. Next, Mr. Charles Mock. I support this paper. In terms of art performance, we are applying more and more technology in different areas, including stage performance. On the one hand, I agree with members that it is really difficult to speculate the development in the future. So you should keep things flexible. I agree. $16 million is not a huge amount. When we think about, computerization programs of the government, $16 million, that's a small amount. For the OPEC, I think that the amount is really minimal, $650,000. Perhaps that's a rather conservative estimation. Now, is it necessary to increase manpower? Of course, when there is another breakthrough in technology, I just want to encourage you to apply with the administration for funding, for procurement. Another question, are you going to work with other universities in terms of the R&D of aspects? You are the user, and you can work with the universities in Hong Kong. Apart from procuring technology from outside, perhaps you can utilize the government's available funds to research the various technologies and products. I thank Chairman and Mr. Charles Mok for supporting the paper. The answer is in the affirmative. We do encourage the Hong Kong APA to collaborate with other institutions. We understand that the APA signed a memorandum of understanding with 3 universities, Hong Kong U, Baptist University, and also the WKCD, as the director mentioned just now. We understand that in terms of manpower, the Hong Kong APA would deploy existing manpowers. But perhaps the Hong Kong APA representative can explain a bit more about manpower? Yes, on manpower, we have existing staff responsible for managing laboratories and studios. So in the coming 3 to 5 years, we should not experience any problem in this regard. We already have expertise in our existing establishment. We also have technicians dedicated to the management of these laboratories. Thank you. May I remind members that I need to draw a line now because we are running late. Ms. Tanya Chan. Chairman, first, this is a laboratory. In other words, it will be for experiments. Of course, individual art troops should be able to use it, but on the whole, apart from education, the laboratory should be used for conducting experiments on new technologies or how you apply new technologies to stage performance. So it's another venue of creation. We are concerned, however, about the interfacing with the market. I'd like a response on how you can take the lead in the use of digital technology. What about the trainees? Apart from Hong Kong APA, will other venues be available? Do we need to wait for an upgrade exercise of the LCSD venues? Because we had the experience in the past, if only major productions would be allowed, I think that this would pose a straitjacket to other performers. Now, I'm not asking about hiring of venues. I'm asking whether you have got an understanding on the application and whether the art troops could afford them. Because after R&D, in fact, there is an interfacing problem with the market. I'd like to know the situation. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and I thank Ms. Chan for her questions. We agree that there should be more collaboration across disciplines. This laboratory will have 1,500 hours per academic year. Most of the time, the laboratory will be used by students, apart from teaching purpose. We envisage that 1,000 hours will be spent on homework done by students. Only 360 hours will be spent on teaching, and altogether 1,500 hours per academic year. And in some way, we can also allow, and we do encourage, collaboration across disciplines. Of course, we need to make it cost effective. As for the point about venues, we understand the community's needs for major renovation exercises. Of course, by then we should incorporate the latest technology. So that's the point about new facilities. For existing facilities, we have major renovation exercises, but I also will bring your view back as to whether we can have minor renovation works to incorporate these technologies to make it quicker.
咁咧，我就想提出幾個問題啦。第一咧就係即係而家講呢個
Now, We are talking about an area of 120 square meters. So can that area be used as a performing venue as well? And for other performing arts venues, what would be the collaboration be in the future? So after students are trained in these areas, will they be able to implement their skills at other venues? Can LCSD give us more information concerning this? And I have a third question. How is this related to teaching? When I read paragraph 18 of the paper, it sets out a number of programs, but they are just general programs, not specific to this new laboratory. So for the future teaching programs, would some of them be completely related to these laboratories, or students in different programs can all use these laboratories for their homeworks and performances? Maybe I should put it this way. For this laboratory, how will it change the present programs? Thank you. 3 questions. First, about venues. And that is about this laboratory. Can it be used as a laboratory and as a performing venue as well? I will ask Mr. Yun to answer the question. As for the second and third questions, that is about the future of the students and the content of the programs, etc. I'll ask Professor Chai to answer these questions. Well, for APA, their programs are very good. As said just now, 99% of their graduates are working in their own professional industries. Maybe I'll respond to the questions first. First, that is whether the audience can take part in the performances. Now our studio will be turned into a VR research laboratory. We do not have a PPE license, so we cannot have live audience, but we can invite people to that laboratory for some small-scale internal performance. As for the design of curricula, we have a list that is for these 3-stage curriculum developments. It also involves interactive control coding, UI, UX design, and VR. So for these courses, they are designed for the VR laboratory. As for other more basic courses, they are also very important for the students' development. So students will be trained in different disciplines, and as they work together, they can put together a piece of work. As for students' career path, every year we would hold several meetings with our industry partners. We would listen to their views. In the past 3 years, we have had a lot of dialogues with them. So we think this is the right time to develop in these areas and to provide courses in this area. As to whether this can be dovetailed with the industry, I can tell you that is correct for sure. Mr. Xiu Guangchen, well, I support the creation of this lab, and I hope that it can be done as soon as possible. The Undersecretary said that the laboratory should be fully utilized. So I have questions for you. In June 2012, the APA got $444 million for building its annex building. And phase 1 of the annex building was completed in 2016, and this year it's all completed. And I think there was the ribbon cutting ceremony. So for the annex building, when you built it, why didn't you include this research laboratory, and why do you want to reconfigure a studio in the theater block for this purpose? Because this is not efficient. Director?
I think one of the key issues is the advance of technology of what was possible several years ago. And maybe I can ask my colleagues in the school to address that as they're really on top of those developments.
Say that if you're looking at, say 6 or 7 years ago, when we were planning the OCE, for instance, we really, at that point in time, we certainly we were not able to come up with a full plan of how we were going to extend this type of technology at the time, and the timing was not right. And maybe I can ask my colleague also to talk about the industry at the time and how it has progressed up to now.
Well, for the performing arts industry, when it comes to the use of VR, we are still in a very initial stage. So for different art groups and emerging artists, they do not have enough venues and resources to do this. So 5 or 6 years ago or even earlier, the industry didn't find it the right time to do this. And when the on-campus expansion was designed, we didn't have internal manpower to design this. Well, for the present trend, just now I mentioned that the technology is now mature and the price is reasonable. And internally, we have a manpower to design and develop this. So that's why we are putting this forward now. Well, I would just say something. I do not need any response. First, I support this application for funding. And we are very concerned about manpower. As the Undersecretary said just now, the laboratory will be used at least 8 hours a day. So how about the staff there? They have to have day offs. So do you have enough manpower to do this? Well, of course, that's your plan. You don't have to answer me. I don't need details like that. I just want to remind you. And secondly, when it comes to collaboration with other universities, I hope you can take the initiative to contact them. Maybe they want to cooperate with you or offer you help. It seems that Hong Kong is not innovative enough. We're never a leader in this field. We are always using other people's technology. So I hope that you can cooperate with other universities to do better in this area. Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, I can only give you 2 more minutes. I just want to repeat my earlier question. Now, would you have some short-term training courses for members of the industry so that they can also learn the new technologies? Yes, we do have the space for doing that, and we will take that into consideration. When we start running this next year, we will know more about the utilization rate. When we start the program, well, we will try to run it for 1 or 2 years first, and then we will know what the situation is like. So we will definitely consider that. So for the APA venues, for example, Amphitheater and Lyric Theater, will these technologies be used so that in live performances, the technologies can be used? Yes, we hope that we can train students to do that. Well, after they've learned this, then they would have enough knowledge. So at the APA venues, they can use the technologies to create their works. As for the hirers, whether they can also use the technologies, well, that is another consideration. Other arts groups can use this, but of course that would involve resources. We hope that we can have cooperations with other art groups. and we can support other artists in their researches. So in the future, we can cooperate in performances. So if this ecosystem appears, I think these technologies can also be used in other venues. I think time is up for this item, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Under Secretary, can you just take us through the paper? Thank you, Chairman. Wait. I would like to remind members. Well, I heard your views. Do you object that the application be submitted to the FC? No. Okay. Under Secretary. I'll now take members through this paper. That is enhancement of programming, audience building, and renewal of permanent exhibitions of Hong Kong Science Museum. As for our Science Museum, it's opened in 1991. It is dedicated to promoting science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education among students and the general public, STEM. We hope that through interactive exhibits, we can captivate the public's interest, curiosity, and imagination, and we will provide enlightening programs for a better understanding and a greater appreciation of the nature. The Science Museum will be launching different programming and audience building activities. This is in line with this year's policy address, and this is also to support STEM education. Now it's going to apply for a fund of $20 million so that several of the permanent exhibition galleries will be renewed. And in the coming 5 years, these renewal works will start and completed. And also high-quality thematic exhibitions will be held, and there will be collaborations with different renowned museums and cultural institutes in the world. When it comes to education and promotion, the Science Museum will continue to work closely with various scientific organizations, educational institutions, and professional bodies to organize a wide variety of public programs such as fun science exploration programs, field trips, public seminars, and family workshops to arouse the public's interest in science and technology. I and my team will be happy to answer members' questions. Thank you. I would like to remind members, if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interests conflict, please let us know. Ma Fung-kwok, Tanya Chen, Charles Mok, Kong Chun-yi, Lau Kok-fan, Ho Kai-ming. Just now I didn't remind members, but please try to confine your questions to 1 or 2. Don't ask a third questions. We do not have enough time. Everyone, 3 minutes. Ma Fung-kwok. Well, the government is applying for $20 million, and that's for renewal. I totally support that. But nowadays, you are only paying $2 million or $3 million more, and that is not a big amount. So why can't you absorb this extra expenses? Why do you have to come for an independent application? But of course, I support STEM education. And for the Science Museum, how are they going to use innovative technology to enhance the visitors' interests? Would there be more interactions?
Under Secretary, let me take his question and then I'll defer to Sir Chen to supplement. Well, this is non-recurrent expenditure. We believe it is necessary for us to submit this proposal for discussion by the panel first. Then, following the established procedure, with members' support, we will be applying for funding under the established procedures. Now, about exhibitions, we have 14 museums and 1 film archive. And among all of them, the Science Museum is the most popular museum. We had a record-breaking 2 million attendance last year. So indeed, we have a lot of we have a big audience, and we have schools and students coming in thousands visiting the Science Museum, and we have schools organizing tours to visit the Science Museum, and we have no problem with the attendance. And perhaps I can invite Mr. Chan to answer the rest of the question. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Ma, for the question. For the recurrent expenditure, they relate to the routine or regular exhibition and education, and this is a one-off renewal exercise, and we'd like to apply for funding. Through this exercise, we'd like to renew or replace exhibits that are worn out or that they are not best suited for the needs of students. We will be using a lot of innovation technology, virtual reality and interactive exhibits. Will be using more multimedia, and it is necessary to carry out this exercise. Let me supplement that a renewal only takes place for the Hong Kong Science Museum once every 20 years or so. I think it is too long. You should make it a regular exercise. I agree with Mr. Ma. Next, Ms. Tanya Chen. Chairman, please take a look at Annex 1. Life science, home technology, transportation, food science, motion, light, sound, electricity, and magnetism. Service year 19. That's quite good for electricity and magnetism. For other galleries, they have a service year of 27. Well, I'd like to ask Ms. Pauline Chen, Museum Director, whether it's really that difficult to obtain funding. Well, just now we had another funding proposal of $16 million for the laboratory in APA. And what about this paper? Occupational safety and health, and then science news corner, they have been renewed or closed for renewal. And also life science, they will be renewed, etc. Earth science to be converted from occupational safety and health gallery and science news corner. Well, I understand that you need funding to replace or renew your exhibits. But the service years of 27 service years for these galleries, I also visited the Science Museum when I was young, and I'm not young anymore. It's a must for students. We all know that. So I don't quite understand. Of course, you need to use VR. 27 years on, what will be phased out and what will be added? For example, food science, home technology, what are they about? Are they about vacuum cleaners? Don't just give us a table as to when the renewal will be completed. I think it's really an eyesore having 27 service years. Well, for 27 years, that was the installations made at the time of commissioning of this museum. In fact, a lot of exhibits have already been renewed, including those mentioned by Ms. Tanya Chan. We still have 5 more galleries awaiting renewal. I also ask why they didn't make an overall renewal in one go. there are practical difficulties. As I mentioned, we have 2 million annual attendances every year. It's the most popular museum among the 14 museums. Every day we have queues of people outside. So we can't just close it down all of a sudden for major renewal. We have been making continuous efforts, however. Now, for the 5 galleries I mentioned, we cannot just close them down altogether. What we're doing is that we replace older exhibits, and it's a continuous effort to make sure that we can keep the museum open 365 days a year. Charles Mock. I think this should be called the History Museum instead. The exhibits are so old. It's not just about the ancient Egypt exhibition. We are looking at exhibits that are so out of date. Have you been to Science Museum in London and the Science Center in Los Angeles, and also Smithsonian, the museums in D.C., Washington? Every time I would visit these museums because they really keep up to date every time I see new exhibitions. Now, the ITC would give us video of what they are doing. Why don't you show us video clips of what you have in your museums? You don't even dare to show us. Now, in schools, we have other learning experience. That is why they need to organize tours to museums. I would rather say that students should not go to the Science Museum, or they will lose interest in science altogether. $20 million. Well, the government has spent $100 billion on the innovation and technology in the coming 3 years, and you're only applying for $20 million. Well, I can give you much more funding. You can take it down and rebuild it. You have no AI, no robotics. Well, you talked about consultation with the sector, but I was never consulted. Have you asked them what should be included? For example, many organizations in my sector ask whether we could have digital archive. Our views have been ignored. What about green technology? It's used by many others around the world. You need to teach people, for example, how you can build a rooftop garden, not the simplistic one that we have at the LegCo complex. You need to conduct experiments, and there are so many things to do. I really don't want students to think that science is all what Science Museum is about. Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned just now, in our renewal effort, we have encountered some difficulties because, for example, of the high utilization of Science Museum. You should look for another site, build another museum, and phase this out gradually. You should give a solution. Don't let people suffer like this. We do have a lot of resources for museums. We have over $1.1 billion a year. As for the content and exhibits, how the renewal should be conducted, I will ask Mr. Chen to supplement. Thank you, and I thank Mr. Charles Mock. I think I can give you a simple answer. In the long term, we do have a plan in mind to expand the Science Museum and address issues regarding the spatial constraints for exhibitions and education at the moment, so that we can have experimental workshop. And we did fully consult the different stakeholders, including the IT industry. Mr. Roy Kwong. I don't know how many of you visited the Science Museum in the past year. I did. Mr. Ho Kai-ming also did. Many people are fond of museums, but the museums seem to be outdated. It seems to be still in the 1990s. Well, we have a room in the Science Museum to demonstrate what? To demonstrate the video conferencing. So I see room with a TV set. And I thought that would be something far more exciting, but in fact, it shows a TV set with and on the screen you will see the person in the other room, and that's it. And let me follow up on Ms. Tanya Chan's question. Well, for food energy, you press a button, and then something will be lit. So that's really satisfying, pressing buttons and something lighting up. So that's what the Science Museum is about. It let us understand how people in the 90s thought about the future in terms of science. Well, apart from local visitors, there would be tourists coming to Hong Kong, and they may visit the Science Museum as well. And it's really embarrassing. You're asking for $20 million in this exercise to update what? Are you going to conduct, say, a telephone survey to make a science museum a genuine science museum? I think the Science Museum is a dinosaur. I'm sorry to say that I am fond of the museum because it's really nostalgic for me to visit something in the 90s in Hong Kong. If this is the objective of the museum, that you'd like to showcase the Hong Kong in the 1990s, but if this is genuinely about science, I want to know whether you have any plan to update the or exhibits. Well, let's say for the electricity and magnetism exhibition gallery, this has been upgraded, but it's nothing more than video conferencing. But we'll be happy if you'd like to visit the museum. What I want to stress is that you refer to some exhibits just now, and it is exactly the reason why we like to update the exhibits to reflect the advancement in technology. The other point is we have audience coming from different age groups, elderly and children. The point is, it is such a catastrophe. Even elderly people find your video conferencing demonstration out of date. Sorry, your time is up. Next, Mr. Edward Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I know the Science Museum is quite popular. It's like a children's playground. So it is quite popular. Many children would enjoy themselves in this space. But if it is positioned as a science museum, I think you need to work on it. Schools now attach importance to STEM education. So even for primary students, they may think that the Science Museum is very out of date, even comparing to the school curriculum. So apart from arranging school visits, is there any plan to collaborate with schools on the promotion of STEM education? Well, on promotion and collaboration with schools, I'll defer to Mr. Chan, the Assistant Director. In our renewal exercise, we'll also devise teaching activities. So through OLEE, other learning experience, we will give opportunities to students to learn more outside the classroom. And Ms. Pauline Chan can give you more details. About liaison with schools, in the $20 million renewal exercise, we're talking about 5 exhibition galleries. For other exhibition galleries, funding has been sought and they will be renewed in phases. And in the coming year, we will be working with schools and tertiary institutions. That means we'll hold workshops with them in schools. Some exhibitions will be converted into roving exhibitions to provide aid to schools in their teaching activities. It is important to train teachers. Not many teachers are equipped with STEM knowledge, so we need to train the trainer and help teacher familiarize themselves with STEM so that they can better understand and apply the technology in the teaching.
Well, maybe you can come to our Fung-kwok Innovation School in the North District. I think they've done a very good job in STEM education. You can come take a look at the STEM or STEAM classrooms. I think they may even be better than the Science Museum. Next, Mr. Ho Kai-ming. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask LCSD, when was the last time that you went to other countries to visit their science museums? Have you compared our science museum with theirs? Well, we have a very close liaison with London Science Museum. Have you compared ours with theirs? Yes, in January this year, I went to London. So what's the result after your comparison? Our strategy is different from theirs. Well, they focus a lot more on collections, and for innovation, of course, they are progressing faster than us. I have a 2-year-old boy. I have a year pass to the Science Museum. I always go to the Science Museum, so I really know about this place. I have also taken my son to the science museums in Singapore and Macau, and my wife has taken my son to the Paris Science Museum. They are much better than ours. So I don't know what $20 million can do. I was playing this game at the Science Museum when I was a kid, and my boy is now still playing that game. Of course, some other things have been updated. For example, the bus driving experience. However, for Singapore, they are already using VR, and their children can learn how to fly a plane. However, for ours, our children are still driving buses. I just played with my son on Sunday. You talked about our comparison with that of London. Of course, we cannot be compared. We have much less interaction. But if you are doing this in a piecemeal, on a piecemeal basis, it's no use. Well, for Singapore and Macau, they have a whole big gallery for a thematic exhibition. For example, in Singapore, they have a gallery on space, and all the walls are screens. So it's like you are virtually in outer space. But we are doing this in a piecemeal, on a piecemeal basis. So you just press a button, and then the light will go up, and this is really very backward and basic. So this is not in the STEM spirit. So what's your whole overall renewal strategy? Otherwise, you can just buy some exhibits. Yes, we understand. We've heard your views, and then we will go back and think about them. As for the Science Museum, whether it can be renovated completely, well, as I said just now, well, because the utilization rate is really high and students visit them all the time, schools take their students to the museum every day, and the students have to do their homeworks. This is tied to their homework, so we cannot close the museum for several years for renovation, but we are thinking about extension. It will not affect the existing operation of the museum, but we can upgrade it significantly. Well, because I like the museum so much that's why I criticize so severely. As to whether there should be a major renovation, yes, I really think so. I haven't been to the Science Museum for quite some time, but I still remember that in the 90s when there was ETV, and ETV programs was shot there, and they had a blue background. I don't know whether it's still there. Now children are playing online games at home. And for our last item, we were talking about VR, AR, and MR technologies. So when you go to a science museum now, it seems that people are going backward. It's like a time capsule. I don't want our science museum to be like that. So what is $20 million? So what is happening to another museum? Now for the Space Museum, you are using $320 million to renovate it. Several months into the renovation, some of the exhibits are already outdated. And now on Science Museum, you will be spending $20 billion. So you are just fixing the original exhibits. They are like prehistoric exhibits. And you're not doing anything new. Yes, you will have 2 new galleries, the one for children, etc. But this small amount of money cannot give me any confidence. Have you looked at the depreciation rates of your exhibits? And have you thought about what's your plan of buying new exhibits? Well, for the $20 million is only for 5 of the permanent exhibition galleries. As for the other exhibition galleries, we have received fundings from LegCo, and this will be done in phases. Maybe the director can tell us more. So for depreciation, is it more or less like that of the Space Museum? Well, for this renovation, we are not fixing old exhibits. We will be having new exhibits, and there will be new thematic exhibitions. So for this 5 exhibition galleries that are to be upgraded, their themes and exhibitions will be totally new. So will it be like Space Museum, that is several months after commissioning, the exhibits will break down because the utilization rate is too high? Yes, the utilization rate is high, so we will pay attention to this, and in the tendering exercise, we will take this into serious consideration. Well, many members asked whether the Science Museum really lives up to its name. Is it just a children's playground? I think for the positioning of the Science Museum, you really have to think about it seriously. Is it built for children and students only? And if there are 2 million attendances, that would be enough? I think members have asked a very clear question. Where will the $20 million be spent? I'm sure at the FC members will ask you this question. You should be more prepared. Just now, I didn't hear you answer this question. To be frank, we are very concerned about the Science Museum, whether it can be more diversified and where it can cater for the needs of different age groups. Well, even for traffic, we have traffic impact assessments. So for your renovation, will you also consult other departments? Have you asked the Education Bureau or the IT Bureau? Would you also listen to the views as to what exhibits should be put there so as to meet the needs of the future? I'm sure you will continue to upgrade your exhibitions. But it seems that this is not really a very scientific science museum. So I hope you can work harder. Well, even I think for these exhibitions, they should be updated every 3 years. You don't have to wait for new galleries to be built. Can you do that? Or do you insist on the status quo? Do you have the resolve to change this? And the positioning of the Science Museum is very clear. Now we will promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. As to whether we have consulted other bureaus, yes, we have done that. We have close liaison with other departments, and we have a number of advisory committees. For example, we have a natural science advisory committee. Experts, academics, and members of the public sit on that. As for the $20 million, maybe our colleague can answer the question. Well, for that sum of money, in the coming 5 years, we will use it to upgrade our 5 permanent exhibition galleries. We will be buying new exhibits, and the themes and stories will be renewed. In the first year, we will use 20 million to renew the exhibition galleries, and then in the following years we will have $45 million for the other galleries. Last, Mr. Siu Ka-fai. I didn't intend to speak on this topic, but members are very enthusiastic, so I would like to join in. Many members have expressed their views. Now you want to keep the traditional concept. You want to attract children and the elderly. However, at LegCo, my experience is like that. For the government departments coming here to apply for funding, members would give the government officials a hard time. But today is very different. We asked you, how come you are just applying for such a small amount of money? So maybe you can apply for more, under Secretary. Well, for the Science Museum, it doesn't only attract children and the elderly. How about fathers, like Mr. Ho Kai-ming? He would take his child to the Science Museum. So I think you should try to meet their needs. And technology is advancing forward in leaps and bounds, and we have always cited Singapore as an example. Now we are losing this battle to Singapore again. So why don't we just give more resources to Science Museum? And also, when it comes to timing, you say that this will take 5 years, right? Well, for the government, I think when you carry out projects, maybe you should do things faster, be more efficient. Now for escalators, it takes 10 years for them to be built. And now members think that you don't have enough resources. So why don't you talk to the Secretary, Mr. Lau, and then come back for more funding? Thank you, Mr. Siu, for your support. We also hope to do more and faster. But in terms of operation, there are limitations. It's not just about money. We also have to look at visitor flow, arrangements, etc. But we still hope that in the coming few years we can do faster, and new exhibitions can be launched in batches. We won't be waiting. And for visitor flow, that is also an indicator. Why has the visitor number dropped? It's because you haven't renewed your exhibitions.
You can have annual passes and other kinds of passes like Ms. Kai-ming, they can visit more frequently. All right, we need to move on to item 5, development of a smart library system. I've just been reminded by Mem Clark that for the item that we just discussed, it will be submitted to the FC. I understand that there is no objection to the $20 million funding application, but you need to improve the paper. Any objection? Should we turn down the $20 million funding application? No? Under Secretary, perhaps you can walk us through the development of a smart library system. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to brief members on the development of a smart library system. That's the last paper. The LCSD has been striving to improve the library services and the library facilities so as to encourage self-learning and the need for innovation technology. At the moment, we have 2 IT systems supporting the library, and they will be reaching the end of their service life. There is therefore imminent need to upgrade the relevant systems to ensure that our services will not be disrupted. At the same time, the government would like to make better use of technology to develop a smart library system so as to enhance our facility and the quality of service and to encourage reading in the community and to help the government realize the vision of developing a smart city in Hong Kong. Through the development of a smart library system, we hope to fully apply the RFID technology, that is radio frequency identification technology, so as to shorten the time needed to queue up at the library counters. We also have a one-stop platform to deal with the search of different informations. There will also be a new platform for e-reading so that through this single platform and one-stop platform, library users would be able to borrow and share the reading of different e-books. And there will also be a mobile application so that users can have access to different services of the library, such as booking, registration, holding of events, participating in reading programs, and also different electronic payment systems. There will also be big data analytics under the new systems so that tailor-made recommendations on book lists and new books can be made to users. With the development of EID in the future, the system will also make it convenient for users. I urge members to support our proposal so that we can submit a funding application with FC as soon as possible, so that the smart library system will be implemented as soon as possible. My team has prepared a PowerPoint presentation to walk members through the concept of a smart library system. Chairman, with the aid of a PowerPoint, I will brief members on the 5 major contributions of the smart library systems. We'd like to have a full application of full RFID technology for all libraries. For example, we can have self-charging terminals. We can also have registration. We also have stock-taking robots for stock-taking our library collection, and we also have self-service facilities for returning books, and we also have some large machines for the collection of pre-booked books, which is a self-service station outside the library. On the whole, for the self-charging, the RFID-enabled terminals, it can help patrons return library materials and make payment, register their information, make bookings, etc. And we hope that we can explore an autonomous model of library service and facility so that we can extend library opening hours to meet the needs of the public. The second contribution is that we'd like to refine our e-library and e-delivery services. At the moment, we have different platforms for e-books, and a user cannot access all e-books and databases on one single platform. Under the new system, we will have single platforms so that different materials, including physical, digital books or e-resources, can be searched on this platform, and there will be an e-reading platform. The materials will be stored in such a format that even outside search engines such as Google can be used to search for library books in library catalog, to directly access our catalog for the borrowing of books. Third, promoting mobile applications. Well, with the advancement in technology, everyone has a mobile phone, so in the future, with the use of a mobile app, they'll be able to access different library services. For example, through the mobile app, a user can look for the exact location of the book in the library that they would like to borrow, and then they can just make a booking through the mobile app without the need to go to the counter. So this will be a one-stop service for searching and borrowing library books and paying for the books. And we're also going to promote reading. With big data analytics, we can then find out, for example, which books are more popular on a weekly basis, and we can also make tailor-made recommendations to users. And we'll also take this opportunity to improve our procurement procedure in a one-stop manner, so that feedback from big data analytics can help with our procurement and improve our library collections to better meet the needs of the public. It will also be convenient for library users to be registered, and we also have reading programs, book clubs for sharing of views and experience in a coherent manner. Lastly, we'd like to encourage development of a smart city. Apart from this smart library system, we'd like to make more data available for analysis so that we can understand the community needs better. By providing open data, will allow the market to develop their own apps on a commercial scale, and the open data can also be used for by individuals or by scholars. And together with other developments such as EID, we will be working in this direction to explore whether we can combine EID with other services of the LCSD. Thank you. Anything to add from the Under Secretary? All right. We have 20 minutes left. Each member will be given 3 minutes, Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, and we need to adjourn the meeting on time. But thank you, Chairman. The library system has all along been criticized for inefficient upgrade of information. So I think that this will be an overhaul of the system. In principle, I support it. Well, as the presentation explained, you have given us some implementation details. My question is, after introducing the smart library system, will you set key performance indicators or KPIs to assess the effectiveness and benefits to be brought about by this system? For example, manpower cost savings and shorter waiting time for services. The number of borrowings, will there be an increase? So will there be indicators drawn up to demonstrate that this system upgrade is of value? Next, about service life. How long will this system last? When will the next upgrade be? I'd like to know from the government. Next, this online platform will be collaborating and interacting with local publishing sector. So I'd like to know whether or how you will interact with the publishing sector or writers in Hong Kong. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Ma, for supporting our proposal, and thank you for the comments. Let me start, and the Director can supplement. I think the Director has made it very clear the details of the system. On the whole, definitely. From the user's perspective, from the reader's perspective, and from the perspective of library management, this system will be a full upgrade. It will be fully automated, so that members of the public can have self-service on their mobile apps for borrowing and returning of books, payment of etc. Well, we won't need as much manpower as we have at the moment for manning counters, because through big data analytics we will have a better idea of the reader's preferences, and this will be reflected in our procurement of library collections. About Mr. Ma's point on service life, this system will last for at least 10 years, but I can ask the Director for details. I asked whether you have KPIs for assessing and reviewing the effectiveness of the system in the future, yes or no? Indicators. Thank you, Member, for the question about cost saving. In paragraph 12, we mentioned that in rolling out the proposal, definitely there will be savings made, and time will also be saved. For example, at the moment, if somebody borrows a book and returns a book at another library, it takes more than 1 day, but we hope to compress the timetable of the book returning arrangement to less than 1 day. As for extending library opening hours, this will definitely be the focus of our study in the future, and we'll be talking to the advisory committees on the setting of indicators. Mr. Roy Kwong. Well, I wear another hat, and I am actually a member of the Advisory Committee on Library Management. Last year, I would like to thank the administration for accepting our recommendation to extend library hours. In Macau, they have the experience. The attendance increased by 40% after library hours were extended. Last year, we conducted a trial. We extended the library opening hours for 3 libraries. We are waiting for the administration's report at the moment. Now, according to you, after upgrading the system, this would help you in exploring the feasibility of extending library opening hours. Well, I am a regular user of libraries. I usually go to libraries to write or to read, and I would say that the pilot trial should be satisfactory, because we are providing a venue for the public to enjoy themselves and to read. About fostering a culture of reading, you need to do a lot of things. You need to upgrade the system, extend library hours. You need to work with the writers and publishing sector. So, Under Secretary or Director, I wonder whether you have views on these 3 directions. Whether you explore a new library with extended opening hours to meet the needs. Let me take your question first. The Director can supplement. We understand the public's needs, and we'd like to extend the library hours as much as possible. It is also in line with our overall policy of promotion of reading and greater utilization of libraries. In fact, for the Hong Kong Central Library, we opened 74 hours per week, as well as 37 district libraries on a weekly basis. They're open for 71 hours on a weekly basis. For smaller libraries in the new territories, well, Undersecretary, I need to stop you. I don't have time. Last year, you conducted a trial. This year, when will the report come back? And like the director to supplement and also the new system and the correlations with extending library opening hours.
Thank you for your question. In 2018, we had a pilot scheme to extend the opening hours of several libraries. We have looked at the data and now we are compiling them. We will report to the relevant committee as soon as possible. Well, for lengthening the opening hours, of course, it will help promote reading. However, it also exerts pressure on our resources. So for this system, how can it help? First, well, the problem is manpower. So we hope that through this system, there will be more automation services. So we will just be like banks, and we will have multifunctional self-service kiosks, and this can provide round-the-clock service. For example, in Hong Kong now, we already have 3 24-hour self-service kiosks, and we are already making use of technology. And as for our cooperation with writers and the publishing sector, in the past few years, there have been collaborations. Now, this system will provide more big data. For example, book borrowing data, and also this will be a platform for recommending books. We will be helping local writers and the publishing sector. For books, we mean both physical books and e-books, and this can help promote reading. And also there will be book sharing, reading sharing, so that this will help the local literary arts circle to be more prosperous. Do other members still want to ask questions? We have Charles Mok, Lok Hian, Chen Chen-ying, Siu Ka-chen, and Luk Chung-ho. I draw a line here. And I'll extend the meeting by 5 minutes. Mr. Charles Mok. Well, for this system, I think we really need to upgrade it as soon as possible. $880 million is not a small sum. And lately, we've heard about the Finland case. They are building a central library, and they've just spent $100 million US dollars. So maybe Hong Kong is even more expensive. Well, the director talked a lot about reading atmosphere. In Singapore, they use their libraries to help their people to prepare for the future economy. So the libraries provide a lot of things, including trainings, etc. People don't just go to libraries to read short play novels, or they don't just go there during weekends for a quiet environment. So I hope that the government would also think in that direction. And secondly, last week you issued this paper, and maybe it's because of the media reports. Well, people now have the impression that you are using $880 million to produce an app, and people will just focus on the three alphabets, APP. But now you are doing a lot of things. There will be self-service kiosks, etc. But we need a breakdown. So for the FC, I think you should give them clearer information. So will you be buying a lot of servers to do this, or will you be using cloud technology? This is very important. Members ask you how long the system will last. You say at least 10 years. We can say that the longer the better. Now, this time around, you will be installing kiosks. Of course, the serviceable lives of the kiosk should be longer. However, for the computer platform, it cannot be used for 10 years. So even for your booking system, you know this very well. I've heard a lot of views. For example, people hope that the opening hours can be lengthened, and they want more service stations, for example, at MTL stations. And how about e-books? How will you promote e-books? For e-books, you do not need RFID technology, but how will you use them, and how will you use the data? How do you promote new books? Also, it's just like Amazon. Please be as succinct as possible. Yes, we have paid attention to what Mr. Charles Mok said. Our positioning is very clear. We know very well what we are doing, and we know what we want to achieve. We hope that we can meet people's need for learning more, and also this system will help develop Hong Kong as a smart city. As for liaising with the industry, we are doing, and we will continue to do more. Well, for extending opening hours of libraries, I hope that can be done as soon as possible. In the communities, we always hope that libraries can be open for longer hours, and every year the LCLSD would tell us that they do not have enough resources. Just now you told us that this is also your goal. You also hope that libraries can be opened round the clock. I don't know whether this will be implemented across the territory, but we have to think about this. You are saying that later on you will be issuing a report on the service stops. So in the future, if the opening hours of all the libraries are to be extended, how will you do it? And if they are open for 24 hours, how many of them will be like that, and how much money is involved? I haven't heard the latest estimation. In 2009, you already thought about extending the opening hours, and that would involve $34 million. And how about now? And for different libraries, their opening hours are different. So would you take this opportunity to review the policy concerning opening hours? So if you want to extend the opening hours of certain libraries, would they be extended to 9 p.m., 10 p.m., etc.? And also for the self-service kiosks, you have one in Tsim Sha Tsui and then one in Tai Wai, etc. So other than this self-service kiosk, I think providing a space for people to read is also very important. And of course, Hong Kong is a very limited land. But do you think that in the vicinity, a reading space can be provided? Thank you. In the past few years, LCSD has done a lot in terms of enhancing the service of libraries, and extending hours is just one of them. I'll ask the director to tell you more about their service enhancement and also about the 24-hour library. We have a lot of pilot schemes when it comes to lengthening opening hours. At 3 libraries, well, at 3 places, we have self-service kiosks, and we will be looking at the utilization rate, and then we will think about an extension plan. In Tsim Sha Tsui Cultural Center, we have a new kiosk, and in the vicinity, there is there are reading spaces. So just like what you said, people can borrow a book and then read there leisurely. And also this year, we have tried to extend library opening hours, and now we are reviewing the results. And this system would give us a platform so that we can further explore the issue of extension of opening hours. This is the initial stage. We want to be more pragmatic. So lately, we have these 2 pilot schemes. We will look at the experiences and then we will move forward. But at least we need the platform and the technology first, and so that we don't need to have so much manpower. And also for some libraries opening hours, normally for the central library is opening hours is different from other libraries. So we will have to look at the functions of different libraries. Mr. Chen Zhenying, I want to ask about the smart library system, how it's going to be packed with smart city. Now, first you talk about e-payment. So for e-payment, you don't have to wait for the completion of the system. Building a platform for e-payment is inexpensive. So for your whole smart library system, it will be completed by 2025. And now a lot of people would like to pay via e-payment platforms. So can you do this first instead of waiting for the self-service kiosks to be established? And you also support EID. This will be realized in 2021-2022. So for EID, you can identify the person, but you don't know who he is exactly. And for today's PowerPoint, you say that you will have real data concerning the utilization of different services. But even without EID, you can do this. So in the future, when that's EID, how will the government balance between people's privacy and libraries' use of such data for analysis and research? Yes, I totally agree with Mr. Chen. We hope that the services can be provided as soon as possible and the upgrading can be done ASAP as well. But this is not a simple task. Well, we need a lot of preparation and work for the new system. With the support of this panel, we'll submit this to the FC, and we hope to get the funding from the FC as soon as possible, and then we can start the work ASAP. It's not that we have to wait for many years for all these. Now, for some libraries, they can start using RFID first, so we will try our best to speed up. Director, about e-payments. Now, on our online platform, this is already feasible. So we are not waiting for the completion of the whole system. With the present technology, we will launch smart services as soon as possible. As for this new system, how can it help the development of Hong Kong as a smart city? For example, open data. Now, when we store data on our computer system, there are a lot of limitations, and that involves a lot of manual operations. So we need a more complete system to store and make public the relevant data. So we have to make use of this new system. And also for EID, we need to work hand in hand with the government, and privacy is very important. We will safeguard privacy, and we will make sure that privacy will not be infringed in the course of doing this. Look Chung Hong, I have several questions. First, about the age groups of library patrons. I mainly see two types of patrons in libraries, middle-aged people and school children. But for those in their 20s, the young people, not many of them will go to libraries. I do not have the exact data.
I don't know whether the department has information to respond to my observation. If there is a low popularity of library services among youths, has the government looked into the reason? Because for netizens, my observation is that they tend to look for everything on the internet, including solutions to their homework and other livelihood problems. It's different from our habit of looking up information and library books to finish homework. Now, today we are talking about the library search system, and I'm quite disappointed. Can we do anything about a search engine for the content of physical books in the library? Make it smarter so that apart from looking up the name of author or title of the books, we can search for the relevant information in library materials. If you haven't considered including this function, why haven't you? I'll see if director has anything to respond to your question about the use of library services. In terms of the age group of library users taking out books, the largest group, that's 21.1%, are those ranging from 40 to 49. For 0 to 19 years old, some 13.1%. For those below the age of 20, we have about 27%. In other words, we have users belonging to different age groups. So that's about library patrons. About library entries, we don't monitor or keep records of the age groups of these library users. On promoting reading, we do focus on promoting reading among all walks of life, including students, and that's the focus of this campaign in the new reading in the new era. We'd like to focus on primary and secondary students. And also about the search engine, we hope to provide a one-stop portal. We have some 60 electronic databases, and we also have an ebook platform, and we can develop a one-stop search engine, and you can just use a keyword. Sometimes you need to type in a keyword to look for information. We hope that this system will be able to provide keyword search. Now, about the physical books, especially for English books, sometimes there may be an excerpt of the content of the books, what the book is about, for example, and we'll try to include such information in the TOC search. All right, we have no time left. That's the end of this item. I'm afraid we need to wrap up here. Is there any objection to this funding application being submitted to the FC? No. All right, last item, AOB. Nothing under AOB, so meeting's adjourned. Thank you.